Part 14. Who would marry into the family after being reborn? Author, Ben Pao de Ba Ling Ho. Chapter 131. Back to Bai Road. Zishun had indeed prepared the meal and was waiting. But with Zishun's cooking skills, what she made was just barely edible. Not presentable. Just like the pot of noodles cooked tonight, it was cooked too early and had already clumped in the pot. But Xiaochun didn't care. She ate several bowls in a row. First, she was really tired and hungry after working all day. Second, it was made by her own sister, so why should she care about it? After dinner, Wu Wei laid out the final payment that was settled today, together with the previous balance and the treasury bonds collected during this period. Zishun was shocked at once. This girl used to feel inferior in school because of her poor family background. It has just improved in the past 6 months, but she still has this mentality when facing classmates in the city. Wu Wei took out so much of his family's wealth today just to cure his sister's heart disease at once. Let her study and grow confidently. Zishun was shocked and could not help but start to feel scared. She had been alone at home for so long, guarding so much money. In contrast, Xiaochun had already known the situation on the way here. Facing so many great united shocks, it was still inevitable to lose consciousness. When she came to her senses, Xiaochun did not forget to poo Zishun and said, "Second brother has created such good conditions for you. If you can't get into a prestigious university, you will let him down." Zishun suddenly felt a little pressured. However, this little pressure was nothing compared to the pressure her family brought her before. The next day was Sunday, December 21st. The sky was a little gloomy, so Wu Wei got up a little late. After washing up, Xiaochun had already listed the list of gifts for today and put it on the 8 immortal table. Which ones were available at home and which ones were to be bought. All were written clearly. Wu Wei only needed to purchase according to the list. After breakfast, Wu Wei went straight to the county supply and marketing cooperative. "I bought malted milk and candy, and brought back 3 boxes of Maotai. This stuff is a hard currency. Even if you can't finish it in a short time, it will only become more and more popular if you put it aside." Then Wu Wei went straight to the family area of the meat processing factory, found Lao Zheng, and got 2 fresh pork legs through him. Although Wang Jing and Yu Lili both said that they could help with these things. But this matter is undoubtedly more professional to ask Lao Zheng, and there is no hand in hand. Bringing 2 pork legs home made Zishun very happy. The family has never been so rich. In this way, there is only one item left on the gift list: fresh live fish. Unfortunately, after a busy morning, I went to the South Vegetable Market at this time, so I can forget about freshness. There are still many live fish, but Wu Wei didn't like them. On second thought, there are several acres of ponds over the Zishan brick kiln factory. When it rains heavily in summer, the ponds are full of big fish. Before the new year in previous years, Fatty Joe would clean up the ponds and pick out the big fish with good quality to give away. This year, the ownership of these ponds belongs to him. Why buy fish? Just cast the net and catch them. With this thought, Wu Wei asked Zishun to take care of the house. He took a box of Maotai, 2 huazi, a pig leg, and malted milk candy and went back to the village first. In the fenced courtyard, Xiaochun caught a rooster and a hen early in the morning, and tied their legs together. They couldn't run away even if they wanted to. It's just that they haven't been fed frequently enough these days, so they look a little thin. Wu Wei unloaded the hard goods on the back seat and put them in the main room first, and then went straight to the Zishan brick kiln factory. As soon as he arrived at the village road, he ran into his senior brother Heqiang, who came to give gifts to his master. The 2 brothers drove side by side for a while and parted ways at the Chiao family courtyard. Not long after, Wu Wei arrived at the Zishan brick kiln factory. From a distance, I saw Pan the dwarf sitting bored by the fish pond, pulling a bamboo pole, tying a fishing line, and fishing there. Compared with those professional fishermen in later generations, this equipment is too amateurish. Wu Wei looked at it and couldn't help but doubt whether it could catch fish. Even if farmed fish are not as smart as wild ones, they can't be so handy, right? As a result, the next moment, reality broke Wu Wei's cognition. Pan the dwarf lifted the bamboo pole with both hands, and a 10-pound big black carp jumped out of the water. Pan the dwarf was leisurely playing the fish back and forth, and it was not until more than 10 minutes later that he used the scoop net to catch the big black carp. Good, Pan the dwarf. Wu Wei watched for so long and had to admire Pan the dwarf. It's true that everyone has their own expertise. He used to work as a bricklayer under Fatty Joe, but he didn't see any talent. On the contrary, this fish was caught, and his skills were extraordinary. Pan the dwarf then noticed and said, "Hey, Mr. Wu, when did you come? I've been here for a long time, since I caught this fish." Pan the dwarf grinned, pulled the big black carp off the hook and said, "Isn't this fish big?" Wu Wei nodded. Pan the dwarf was so proud that he was about to throw it away. "Wait," Wu Wei stopped him, "you caught it with great difficulty. If you throw it back, it will be a waste of time, right?" Pan the dwarf said, "I was fishing for fun to kill time, so of course I have to throw it back after playing. Keep this one for me, and help me catch another one of similar size, so I can keep it and give it to someone else." Pan the dwarf said happily, "Okay, give me 10 minutes. Just then, Chinziru came out of the yard. She looked neat and tidy, as if she had just washed and dressed. "Boss Wu is here? Come in and have some tea. This is to let him go home." Wu Wei looked at him and said, "No, I'll catch 2 big fish as a gift." Although it was just a glance, Chinziru almost couldn't stand it. As a woman, she was too familiar with this kind of look. It was the feeling of seeing through everything at a glance. But it shouldn't be. She was very careful when taking a bath on weekdays, and it was impossible for anyone to see her. After trying to support her legs, Chinziru forced herself to stay calm. She came to the fish pond and stood on the other side of Pan the dwarf. She watched Pan the dwarf fishing together. Within 5 minutes, Pan the dwarf caught another fish. But this fish was a little smaller than the previous one, only 3 or 4 pounds. It didn't match. She just let it go and rebaited and fished again. Chinziru secretly glanced at Wu Wei, and his majestic profile was really impressive. I must have been so bold that I wanted to marry such an excellent man. This time it was even faster. In less than 3 minutes, Pan the dwarf caught another fish. And judging from the movement of the fish in the water, it must be at least 10 pounds. Wu Wei was so happy. But Pan the dwarf was still swimming back and forth without any hurry. His calm and relaxed attitude was indeed the performance of a professional fisherman. Not long after, the fish came ashore. Wu Wei pulled a few straws over, soaked them with water, tied them through the gills of the fish, and picked it up with his hands, saying, "Let's go. After the winter solstice, someone will come to take over the work, and then we will have something to do." Who would marry into the family after being reborn? Author, Ben Pao de Ba Ling Ho. Chapter 132. When arriving at Master's house. Among all the brothers, Wu Wei was indeed the last one to arrive. Fortunately, his car was full, and he was also the most generous gift. Fourth senior brother Ik even joked with a smile, "As expected, the boss is always the last one to appear." Although Ik used the wrong word for the finale, it did not affect everyone's understanding of its meaning. Wu Wei supported the car and directly pulled Ik's strong man. "Fourth senior brother, stop talking and just lend a hand." Ik immediately put the cigarette in his mouth and said to his assistant, "As long as you are not afraid that master will misunderstand that these are gifts from me, I will help you move them all." How could Wu Wei be afraid of this? That's just right. I won't bother the two masters about anything. I'll leave it all to you. Then he took out the huazi and gave one to Zike, who had become a young man, and put it behind his ear. Then I went here to meet Master Chiao Wei, He Chiang, Chiao Qiudong, Lu Jianwei, Shi Jianjun, and others. While socializing, Chiao Yuyan was seen leaving the kitchen room. Watching Zike move things into the main room one by one and arrange them together. Chen Yuejuan was free and saw the pig front leg that Wu Wei had brought and the two big herrings that were jumping around. He didn't say anything, but he knew very well in his heart. When he and his daughter Chiao Yuyan gathered in the kitchen, he whispered, "Xiao Wu, this kid is sincere. That fish and meat will be enough to last until the new year." Chiao Yuyan felt proud, but she did not forget to echo, "He said he would give Dad a box of Maotai, and sure enough he did, 12 bottles in total." As a result, the eldest sister Chiao Yuning, who came in to wash the vegetables, heard this. "Mom, what do you mean? Do you think my boss has given me too little, and you don't like it?" Chen Yuejuan said confidently, "Did I mean that? When did he come over and I didn't greet him with 4 dishes and 1 soup?" Chiao Yuning felt bored and turned around to attack Yao Mei again. "Don't look at how good he is to you now and generous to our parents. But wait until you get married. Men don't cherish it after they get it." After saying that, she showed an expression that she has seen many times. Chiao Yuyan thought that the relationship between the two was just short of breaking through the last layer. "I didn't see anything that Wu Wei didn't cherish. Did this come after it wasn't supposed to come? It's just that she can only keep such secrets in her heart, and even her mother and sister are inconvenient to talk about it. To avoid making too many mistakes and making them aware of it." Not long after, wine and food were served, which was quite sumptuous. The master's own children, together with these personally accepted disciples, sat down at the table, and there was a crowd of people. This is under the premise that the apprentices have not brought their wives and children. 1 drink and 3 bottles of Maotai. Just when he was about to open the 4th bottle, Mr. Chiao felt distressed and unhappy. After all, no matter how many 12 bottles there are in a box, they can't withstand such a terrible drink. After everyone had their fill of the fun, they all just stopped doing it without breaking the news. "After all, when I go back in the afternoon, I have to have another drink with my respective apprentices. After drinking enough, wait until everyone has their jobs. Only then did Mr. Chiao start talking about business. Tomorrow is the winter solstice. You guys will have a rest at home for a day. You will all come to Zishan Brick Kill Factory the day after tomorrow. Take advantage of the free time this year to build this brick kiln as much as possible." As a result, the second senior brother Lu Jianwei was very happy when he heard this. "Master, does a mere brick kiln need all of us senior brothers to do it? The implication is that this life is not that big. In fact, it's no wonder. What everyone sees on weekdays are all earthen kilns. They can't burn many bricks even if they are fired for a year." Mr. Chiao Wu said confidently and calmly, "The 54-door Lun kiln has 3 fires and is more than 100 meters long. What do you think?" When Lu Jianwei heard this, he was stunned on the spot with his mouth full of rice. "Such a big brick kiln, and it's a will kiln." Shi Jianjun echoed, "It's so high-tech. I heard that the output of fired bricks in Lun kiln is high. The village wanted to start it before, but it didn't happen because of lack of money." Everyone was shocked and looked at Wu Wei. Wu Wei just smiled and said, "I guess red bricks will be in short supply soon, so I might as well build a big one in one step. This reason sounds reasonable. But the key to getting it right in one step is to have enough capital. In this way, junior brother's strength is simply beyond imagination." Zike didn't think about this. Instead, he looked expectantly and said, "So, I can go too?" Fifth Master Chiao nodded, "Come all, no one should be left behind, and no one should let me down." After lunch, all the brothers and sisters dispersed. Wu Wei was at the end and followed the cart out the door. Qiao Yuyan reluctantly gave it away, but in front of her eldest sister and second brother, she was embarrassed to be too clingy to Wu Wei. Wu Wei could only be allowed to leave alone. Wu Wei rode his bicycle to the entrance of the village and met fourth master Qiao coming out. He immediately got out of the car, gave fourth master a cigarette, and then lit the fire. Fourth master Qiao then said, "The progress of the furniture here is normal, you don't have to worry about it. Before the storage is over, they can all use new furniture." Wu Wei nodded, "I can rest assured that fourth master is doing things." However, the conversation changed immediately, "I have something else to do. Fourth master, please help me pay attention to it." When fourth master Qiao heard this, he said without hesitation, "Okay, you say it." Wu Wei blew out the smoke and said, "You help me feel the stubble. Look at who has some antique furniture handed down from their ancestors in these 10 miles away. The best ones are Huanghuali, red sandalwood, golden nan, etc. Okay. Bad ones, whatever." Hearing this, fourth master Qiao couldn't help but sigh. If it was 10 years earlier, it would not be difficult to collect these things. It's a pity that so many good things have been burned in the past years. But since you mentioned it, I will ask someone to pay attention. But you can't be impatient, you have to wait a little longer. For this, Wu Wei was mentally prepared and said, "Of course, fourth master, you are worried." After talking to fourth master, Wu Wei was about to ride away. Then he saw his apprentice Ma Heidao coming out, holding the key to his own fenced yard in his hand. When he saw Wu Wei, he said as if he had met a savior, "Master, you are back." "That's just right, there are many masters who came to the fenced yard to give gifts. I came to inform Sister Xiao-chun, but she was too busy and had no time. She asked me to take the key and help keep the account." Before he finished speaking, he was interrupted by Wu Wei and said, "Did you also give gifts?" Ma Heidao smiled. If he didn't go to give gifts, how could he know about this matter? Wu Wei didn't say much, just pursed his lips and said, "Give the key back to Xiao-chun, I'll go back to the fenced courtyard." "Then master, wait for me." The master and apprentice returned to the fenced courtyard. The narrow path at the entrance was crowded with people. Wu Wei squeezed through, and most of the masters who caught his eye were the masters who had worked on the meat processing factory site. They all had more or less in their hands. When they squeezed all the way to the entrance of the fenced courtyard, Wu Wei was even more surprised. "Aunt Wang, why are you here too? You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Who would marry into the family after being reborn?" Author, Ben Pao de Ba Ling Ho. Chapter 133. The sophistication of people these days is simplicity. You make money with them, and you also make money with them. They come back to thank you. All I can say is that it is not easy to have an opportunity to make money now. Wu Wei unlocked the door of the fence courtyard and received them one by one in the main room. Unfortunately, the incident happened suddenly and there was no hot water at home. Fortunately, most of the people who came were gentlemen, and having a cigarette was enough to greet them. Many people just met each other, left gifts, and then stood up to say goodbye. Their inarticulateness and obscurity are most vividly reflected in them. Even so, it took Wu Wei more than 2 hours to receive them one after another. Wait until everyone disperses. The main room was filled with tables full of tobacco, alcohol, candies, and local specialties. These are fairly easy to handle. What was really difficult to deal with was the chickens and ducks flapping around in the yard, as well as the large pot of live fish next to the well. If this is not properly settled in the middle of the night, everything is cheap in Wang Tai Sin. Fortunately, it was still early in the morning, so before Ma Heidao left, Wu Wei clapped his hands and said, come here and see how to build the second and fourth walls. Ma Haydao came over with interest. The master and apprentice used old bricks and tiles that had been piled up in the yard to temporarily build a chicken coop of 5 or 6 square meters. Although no thin mud or clay is used, it is absolutely no problem to support it for a while using the 2 or 4 wall method. Then he untied all the ropes from the legs of the chickens and ducks, threw them into the pen, and sprinkled them with grain. Live together. After finishing his work, Wu Wei took the gift brought by Ma Haydao and asked him to take it back. The reason is, you haven't officially become a master yet. When you officially become a master after the year, I will send you to you. I will have nothing to say. Ma Haydao didn't know what was going on, so he took it back in a daze. As a result, when he got home, he was scolded by Ma Jinbei. But when the father and son returned the gifts, Wu Wei was no longer in the fence yard. After all, Zishan had to rush to school this evening. Wu Wei could not stay in the village for long. After sending Ma Haydao away, he put all the live fish in the basin into bags and brought them to the county. It's different from chickens and ducks running all over the floor. These live fish can be raised in the fence yard, and they can also be raised in the Bai Road small yard. What's more important is that Zishan uses his brain a lot when studying, so eating more fish can just replenish his brain. When he returned to the Bai Road courtyard, Zishan was immersed in selecting rice to take to school. Xiaochan usually helps her with these tasks. Now that Xiaochan was busy, he obviously couldn't care about her. When Wu Wei saw this, his heart moved. Why don't my second brother buy you a kun car tomorrow? You can go to day school. As he spoke, Wu Wei took off the nylon bag on the back seat of the car. Pour it into the basin at the door of the kitchen, otherwise there are so many fish, and you won't be able to eat much. Zishan was stunned. Since she moved to the county, she did have the conditions for a day study. From the county to Bai Road, it is only 2 or 3 kilometers away. Many day students' journeys are farther than this. It's just that her routine is still based on the biological clock of a dormitory student. It took me a while to get used to it. But seeing so many delicious food at home, she couldn't help but get greedy. Living on campus every day means not having enough food. Besides, eating and drinking with Xiao Yuyan all the time would not be a long-term solution even if she was under pressure. So after hesitating for a long time, he said, "Let me ask Teacher Qiao." "Okay, you can ask." Wu Wei directly slapped Zhang Daichuan and handed him over. "You just go there with your books today, and I will pick you up at noon tomorrow." Zishan took the money and left happily. That night, around 7:30. When Xiaochun returned home, Wu Wei came out to welcome him and gave Xiang Hui a piece of huazi. Only then did I realize that Xiang Hui was still carrying gifts on the back of his car. Wu Wei glanced at Sen Mei and said, "Didn't I tell you not to give it away?" Xiang Hui was stunned and didn't answer yet. Xiaochun was the first to say, "It wasn't from him. It was from Haydao to you. Uncle Ma took him to find the village headquarters in person and forced it on me. I can't push them away." Wu Wei took a closer look and saw that they were indeed the ones given by Ma Haydao in the afternoon. As for the 3 masters, Ma Jinbei and Ma Ling, aren't they just the 3 masters? Just like this, Xiang Hui felt a little embarrassed. But as soon as Xiaochun spoke, he felt relieved. "Second brother didn't mean to point you out, don't think too much about it." Yes, yes," Wu Wei nodded repeatedly, "that's right, you haven't eaten yet. I just stewed a pot of fish. You and Xiaochun can make do with it." Xiaochun originally didn't expect the second brother's fish to be so delicious. After all, growing up, the second brother rarely went to the kitchen except for the time when he boiled lard. Therefore, it is rare for the second brother to extend his hand, and he may only be able to make do with it. As a result, the 2 of them washed their hands, held rice, and sat around the 3-burner briquette stove. When Wu Wei opened the lid of the pot, a rich aroma hit his face. Wait until the aroma dissipates with the heat. A crucian carp weighing about 3 kilograms lies inside, paired with old tofu soaked in soup, plus coriander, chili peppers, garlic cloves, and chopped green onion. This configuration alone is enough to fill it up. In previous years, when Xiaochun would rarely stew fish, meat, and tofu, he would not even add extra oil. Not to mention so many ingredients. Xiaochun was quite surprised and said, "Second brother, when did you know how to do this? It looks good like this." Wu Wei calmly lit a cigarette and said, "Don't just look at it, try it." Xiaochun picked up a piece of the belly of the cicada with chopsticks and put it in her mouth to taste it. "Well, it tastes good. It's fried just right and stewed well." Wu Wei said without any surprise, "There is also a catfish stewed at the same time, cicada, I sent it to the old lady." This old lady is not someone else, naturally it is the old lady Zhao next door. Xiaochun nodded, scooped a spoonful of soup and poured it on the rice, and directly scooped up half a bowl. After the feeling of hunger in the stomach was slightly relieved, she kicked Xiang Hui and said, "Why don't you say a word?" Xiang Hui then quickly said, "Brother's cooking is so delicious, how can I have time to talk?" Wu Wei was relieved. He then mentioned the matter of letting Zishun go to school as a day student. Xiaochun heard it and felt that this was natural. This year of the graduating class, I have tried every means to make Zishun eat better, nothing wrong. The next day is the winter solstice. It was raining and snowing in the sky, and it was wet and damp everywhere. But Wu Wei was in a good mood. They say that a sloppy winter solstice leads to a clean new year. At least this year, the weather should be good. After breakfast, he sorted out the cash at home. Excluding the cash that was exchanged for Xiang Hui recently, there was still more than 110,000 yuan in cash at home. Wu Wei simply took out the whole amount and deposited a deposit certificate of 100,000 yuan at Beihai Road Bank. Although the Zishan brick kiln factory was about to start construction, the 100,000 yuan would not be needed for a while. As for the more than 10,000 yuan at home, it was enough to deal with the treasury bonds exchanged from Xiang Hui and Qiao Yuyan before the end of the month. Who would marry into the family after being reborn? Author, Ben Pao de Ba Ling Ho. Chapter 134. After calling the bank and leaving, Wu Wei went to the east of the city without stopping. As a result, Boss Chen was celebrating the holidays at home and didn't come to the store at all. Wu Wei missed the opportunity and turned back to the fence yard. The ground of the fenced courtyard was wet with Wang Taisin's footprints. But judging from the situation around the chicken pen, there shouldn't be any losses. Wu Wei was thankful, so he opened the old chicken coop and fed him some food. As for the new chicken pen, we can't let it go for the time being. We can only take off the tiles and sprinkle some food on it, and then continue to keep it closed. Wait until they are familiar with this place before releasing them, so that they will not be lost and cannot be found again. But today is the winter solstice, a festival. After Wu Wei scattered the grain, he randomly selected 2 lucky ones, a male and a female. I just tied a rope on the 2 chicken legs and hung them on the back seat of the car. I saw Chinziru riding a big 28-meter pole to the gate of the fence courtyard. Although the 28-inch large bar frame is a bit too big for women. But Chinziru was still able to control it with ease. Wu Wei frowned, "Why are you here?" Chinziru pushed the cart into the hospital and smiled before she said anything. She was mainly trying to reach out to avoid hitting the smiling person. "I came to try my luck. I didn't expect you to be at home. You are my boss now. Even though I am a womanly person, I cannot be ignorant." While talking, Chinziru smiled and took off a net bag from the handlebar, which contained 2 cigarettes and 2 bottles of wine. Then he walked toward Wu Wei, swaying his hips and swaying his hips. Wu Wei clapped his hands without looking and said, "Actually, you don't need to be a big boss. You can earn commission by running orders and make a living based on your ability. One more person is not too much, and one person less than you is not a lot. Chinziro couldn't get out of the net bag in her hand. I had to send it to the main room myself. As soon as I walked in, I found that the room was full. The truth is, one more of yourself is not too much, and one of less of yourself is not enough. Even so, she still put down her net bag, turned around, and changed the subject. Actually, there is another thing I want to tell you when I come here this time. Speaking of this, Chinziro suddenly became confident with her head held high. She felt that after hearing this, Wu Wei would definitely have a great change in his opinion of her. And she realized the value of her experience and resume in running brick kills with Fatty Joe over the past few years. Wu Wei was non-committal, you say. Chinziro continued, I heard last night that you plan to build a large wheel kill, which will cost at least hundreds of thousands. I thought about it for half a night and felt that it was a bit rash to do this. In previous years, the red bricks fired from this earthen kiln were not always sold out. When you first join such a big wheel kill, you don't even know it will be until the end of the year of the monkey, let alone making money. Believe me, I'm really thinking about your brick kill. Wu Wei nodded, he really did not doubt this. Because this is what Chinziro did in her previous life. First, the earthen kiln was repaired and a medium-sized brick-making machine was installed. However, the output could not keep up with the sales. By the end of 1987, they decisively demolished and rebuilt 20 wheel kilns. I thought this would last at least 5 or 6 years. Unexpectedly, the sales volume exploded in 1988, and the production capacity of the 20-door wheel kiln failed to keep up. But at that time, neither of them gave up their determination to start over. After putting it off until 1992, I finally made up my mind. As a result, the market began to take a turn for the worse, and at the same time, the policies from above also changed. I missed this good opportunity in vain. I really can't keep up with every step. After coming back to his senses, Wu Wei said in a nonchalant manner, it's not like no one mentioned this to me. But you don't need to say anything about what I have already decided. If you have that time, you can make the greatest contribution to the factory by running more orders. Chinziro was stunned, knowing that all her hard work was a mistake. Then he smiled sadly and said, okay, let me talk too much. You are the boss and I am a part-time worker, so there is no need to worry about this. After saying that, he pushed up the 28 big bar and left without looking back. Looking at the other party's hurried away figure, Wu Wei raised his eyebrows. Is this woman still wronged? Just wait and see how wrong you are. Returning to the Bai Road courtyard, the pair of miserable chickens disappeared in an instant. Wu Wei let the chopped chicken soak in the water, and all the excess chicken water was swept away by Dawang. I squealed when I ate the rhubarb. Then he went straight to the People's Shopping Mall and spent 260 yuan to buy a fully covered early Ucan car. After a period of operation, prices in People's Shopping Malls and county supply and marketing cooperatives have gradually leveled off. Only department stores remain at the top, specializing in taking advantage of others. After riding the early Ucan bike back, Wu Wei found the remaining paint at home and wrote Zishun's name on the body of the bike. It's just that the word 11 has too many strokes and I can't write it down at all. In the end, it could only be simply replaced by Chinese pinyin. After finishing all this, Wu Wei began to cook fish and stew chicken, guarding the 2 briquette stoves and firing his bows left and right. Just like when Xiao was here. When the food was almost ready, Wu Wei took out the thermos bucket, filled out a half pot of old hen soup, took it with him, and headed straight to the county. When I arrived at Bailun Middle School, it was time for lunch after class. Wu Wei was downstairs in Zishun's house, and as expected, he saw Xiaoyuan and Zishun coming out side by side. As soon as she saw Wu Wei coming, Xiaoyuan subconsciously quickened her pace. As a result, After surpassing Zishan's body size, I realized that I was a little too impatient. Quickly pulled Zishan over with him. Her pretty face was filled with excitement and she said, I agree in principle that you want Zishan to go to school part-time. But you and Xiaochun are so busy, is there anyone at home to cook for Zishan? This is indeed a problem. Fortunately, Wu Wei had already prepared, I have discussed with Xiaochun, whoever is free will do it. He handed over the thermos bucket and said, I made it today, and I brought some here for you to try. Qiao Yuyan took it with surprise, I actually have a share. Wu Wei smiled and said, if I wasn't afraid that you couldn't leave, I would let you and Zishan go back and eat together. Qiao Yuyan couldn't wait to unscrew the thermos bucket, and saw a rich and delicious smell of chicken soup. This taste and the color of the soup make people very appetizing at first sight. Qiao Yuyan couldn't help but wonder, could it be that you ordered it in the restaurant? Without waiting for Wu Wei's response, he said happily, no matter whether it is or not, I will treat it as if you made it yourself. This is very pleasing. Wu Wei waved goodbye to Qiao Yuyan and took Zishan back to the courtyard of Bei'ai Road. As soon as she saw the new car, Zishan immediately loved it. Wu Wei urged, eat first, and after dinner, I will take you to practice riding. You can ride the new car to school directly. Unexpectedly, Zishan is a good student. But she is particularly clumsy in learning to ride. After practicing for a whole afternoon, she still rode tremblingly and swaying from side to side, which made people worry. As a last resort, Wu Wei could only ride with her in person and let her adapt for a few days. Who would marry into the family after being reborn? Author, Ben Pao de Ba Ling Ho. Chapter 135. After the winter solstice, the sleet stopped. The sky cleared up, but the temperature was getting lower. Early in the morning, Wu Wei sent Zishan to school. The road was covered with a thin layer of ice as he waded through the water. After sending Zishan back, Wu Wei turned around and went to the east of the city. This time, Boss Cheng was finally there. But his condition was the same as that of many rural people. In rural areas, the new year comes after the winter solstice. Throughout the year, no matter whether you make money or not, you don't bother at this time. You just stay at home and wait for the new year. What's more, Boss Cheng still has a good year this year. And the lucky star who brought him this good year is Wu Wei. So when he saw Wu Wei, Boss Cheng's enthusiasm was even better than before. Boss Wu, if you have something to say, why don't you just call? It's so cold, why bother you to come here in person? Wu Wei handed over a cigarette and said, this time it's a big deal, I must discuss it with you in person. Oh, Boss Cheng's face slightly calmed down, and he took the cigarette solemnly and said, Boss Wu, you tell me. Wu Wei directly turned on the lighter to light the cigarette, then threw the lighter to the other party, raised two fingers and said, two things. First, you immediately get me a batch of refractory bricks and send them to the Zishan brick kiln factory. They are going to build a 54-door large kiln there. Second, wait until the beginning of next spring, my brick kiln factory will start shipping. Boss Cheng, you have to help me ship first, and the price is negotiable. This is a bit overbearing. But Boss Cheng thought that the young man in front of him was related to Mr. Zhong. It is reasonable to be a little overbearing. Even so, Boss Cheng still said matter-of-factly, Boss Wu, the first point is naturally no problem. But the second point, I am a little worried. Wu Wei exhaled smoke and said, you say. Boss Cheng continued, your new kiln has just shipped, and the quality and output of red bricks may not be comparable to the old kilns for a while. In this case, I unconditionally give priority to helping you ship. Not only will the old kiln be unreasonable, but it will also ruin the reputation. To put it bluntly, it is just a worry about the new kiln's bricks. Wu Wei smiled casually, if the quality of the red bricks of the new kiln is not as good as others, you, Boss Cheng, can do whatever you want, I will never say anything. Boss Cheng handed the lighter back and said, with your words, I feel relieved. Leaving the east of the city, Wu Wei went straight to the Zishan brick kiln factory. As a result, the sun shone for a long time, and the road began to thaw, and it was 9 deep and 1 shallow to walk. Even so, when he arrived at the Zishan brick kiln factory, Master Chiao Wei had already taken a few brothers to survey the terrain back and forth. Everyone was wearing long rain boots, covered in mud. Fortunately, there was no shortage of various waste bricks near the brick kiln. After walking for a while, a road was made by paving with bricks. At least Chin Ziru and her 2 children relied on this method to go back and forth between their home and the village road. Seeing Wu Wei coming, Master Chiao Wu handed the blueprint to his eldest apprentice He Chiang. He took Wu Wei to a high place and said, I have watched with your brothers for a long time. If this Zishan brick kiln factory wants to become bigger and stronger, in addition to making the rotary kiln bigger, a special road must be opened up. As he said, Master Chiao Wu pointed to the direction of the village road under his feet and said, this section of road is at least 300 meters. Once it rains and blows, you can't transport the red bricks at all. It's too much of a delay. If the cost of this road is included, your investment will have to increase. Wu Wei pondered and said, if you want to do your job well, you must first sharpen your tools. Master, you are right. This road must be paved. Master Chiao Wu turned around and said, if you have financial difficulties, I will get together with your brothers. Unexpectedly, Wu Wei was very optimistic and said, for the time being, not yet, Master. If it really comes to that, I will definitely not be polite to you. Master Chiao Wu nodded, and said without surprise, then I will go back and tell Brother San to ask him to contact someone to send a few trucks of gravel. Once the road surface is dry, we will pave this 300-meter road first. Wu Wei had no objection, but reminded, Master, first estimate the bricks and tiles that can be dismantled from this kiln factory, and then ask someone to send gravel over. Even if it is paved with cement road later, as long as it is not wasted, anything is fine. Master Chiao Wu raised his eyebrows, waste utilization? That's a good idea. Fat Joe burned a lot of bricks and unsold bricks, which can save a lot of gravel. But in today's situation, the work can't be done. The master and apprentice surveyed the terrain for a while and went home early. Wu Wei returned to the fenced yard and opened the new chicken coop. There were a lot more eggs and a lot of chicken shit inside. He reached out and fished them out one by one, then scattered some food, and then took the eggs back to the small courtyard on Bai Road. But no matter how hard he tried, he still didn't catch up to pick up Zishan. When he got to the door, he saw that the door of the small courtyard was open, and Zishan had already returned by herself. Wu Wei felt relieved and rode into the courtyard. He parked the bike and was about to enter the main room when he saw Xiao Yuyan coming out of the east wing with a guilty look on her face. Oh, you're here too. Xiao Yuyan was a little bit timid and said, why, I can't come. Yes, of course. Wu Wei turned around and went to the bathroom to wash his hands and said, I feel more at ease with you accompanying Zishan back. After saying that, Wu Wei shook his hands and saw Zishan still busy at the coal stove. He went over and took the palm leaf fan and said, this stove has never been extinguished, why did it go out in your hand? Zishan stuck out her tongue. She was careless, and she opened the damper as soon as she came back, but forgot to add coal balls. As a result, the coal balls burned out quickly, and if they were not refilled with new ones, they would go out directly. Wu Wei quickly lit the coal stove and let Zishan put the dishes that Xiaochun had prepared in the morning on the stove to heat them. Xiao Yuyan saw that he had time, so she came up to him and said, what is the blueprint in the east wing? Wu Wei thought about it, and there were many blueprints in his room. Which one? Xiao Yuyan went into the house and took it out as if she was familiar with it. Wu Wei took a look, This is the small building I plan to build next year after demolishing the old house. Xiao Yuyan's beautiful eyes suddenly sparkled when she heard that it was a small building to be built by her family. Can a small building in the countryside be built so beautifully? What's the difference between this and living in a villa? Wu Wei smiled and said, when you move in next year, you will know the difference. Xiao Yuyan was very happy, but she couldn't help but sighed, it must cost a lot of money, right? It's a pity that my salary can't help at all. She's thinking about helping before she gets married. Wu Wei was grateful in his heart, but he said clearly, your marriage is the biggest help. After all, with you as the hostess, this small building can be called a home. These words sounded simple, but they were more touching than any sweet words. Xiao Yuyan felt her heart melt. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Who would marry into the family after being reborn? Author, Ben Pao de Ba Ling Ho. Chapter 136. 2 days passed in a blink of an eye, and it was Christmas Day. The road section from the brick kiln factory to the village road was finally dry enough to make a roadbed. When Wu Wei arrived at the Zishan brick kiln factory, Xiao Wei had already started working with his people. The scene was dusty and bustling. All the old bricks dug out of the old kiln were broken up and evenly laid on the 5-meter wide roadbed. With the help of the stones called by the old branch secretary, they were rolled back and forth by manual wheels. The roadbed was compacted little by little, and the side of the old kiln was also cleared out bit by bit. Until noon on the 27th. The 300-meter road led directly to the old side of the kiln factory. At the same time, on the cleared side of the kiln factory, Xiao Wei also led people to select the approximate construction direction of the new round kiln. But before that, considering that Fatty Zhou and Xiao Wei died here, he also specially invited the old ladies in the village who pretended to be ghosts to come and perform a magic for an hour. It can be regarded as a kind of self-comfort. Wu Wei did not stop this. After all, this matter was widely spread in the village. In the future, the new kiln factory still expects villagers to come to work, so they can only follow the local customs and let it go. Anyway, it won't cost much money. After such a busy work, it was afternoon. Just as the dust settled, Boss Cheng's refractory bricks were transported over. Boss Cheng, who came with the car, immediately handed over a cigarette when he saw the scene. Boss Wu, this kiln factory has immediately presented a big kiln atmosphere after you took over and transformed it like this. Now I begin to understand your determination to do it in one step. Damn it, a good man is upright and upright. If you want to do something, do it big. Wu Wei took the other party's huazi and said, I'll borrow your good words, Boss Cheng. The two of them put their heads together and lit a cigarette. Boss Cheng blew out a puff of smoke and sighed, to be honest, after I finish this order, I will just wait for the new year. Wu Wei understood and said, don't worry, Boss Cheng, I will pay you the money for this order before the new year. After achieving his goal, Boss Cheng refused again and again, that's not what I meant, Boss Wu. We have been working together for so long, and it's almost the same if you keep the money in your pocket. I'm not worried at all. Wu Wei smiled and said nothing. That night, work was over, because it was Saturday. Wu Wei followed his master back to the Qiao family courtyard. Xiao Yuyan had come back early, and when she saw him coming, she seemed to have a telepathic connection, and her beautiful eyes were full of sweetness. During this period, the two of them had no chance to be affectionate. But their relationship became even closer. Looking happy, Xiao Wei made an exception to drink the Maotai that Wu Wei sent last time. The master and apprentice toasted each other and just drank 3 3-Qian cups, which was less than 1 tael. Then the secretary's wife Lu Hong came over with the crying Xiao Moli. After all, mother and son are connected by heart. Chen Yuejuan saw this and her heart skipped a beat. She immediately thought of Chiao Kuliang. As a result, when Chiao Moli finished crying, Chen Yuejuan almost fainted on the spot. Chiao Yuyan pinched her philtrum and patted her back repeatedly before she gradually recovered. Wu Wei was puzzled and asked, "You said before that the third brother was doing well in business and making a lot of money. How did he suddenly go to the shelter and repatriation station?" Chiao Moli shook her head blankly and said, "I don't know. He didn't have time to say anything before the phone was hung up. I only know that he was locked up in the Zebei district shelter and repatriation station. These days, the shelter and repatriation station still has certain risks. In terms of reputation, it is waiting for the number of people in the same repatriation direction to gather together and be repatriated together. But before being repatriated, the crime is not pleasant. Some people died inexplicably." Wu Wei clenched his teeth. Then he saw Master Chiao Wei drink the wine in his glass in one gulp and said, "He deserves it. How dare he call back?" Although he said so, he couldn't just ignore it. Especially when Master's wife Chen Yuejuan was so scared, Wu Wei couldn't just stand by and watch. Fortunately, he originally planned to go to Shanghai at the end of the month. Now it's just a little earlier. Having made up his mind, Wu Wei said, Master's wife, it's too late to rush to Pengcheng at this time today. I'll leave tomorrow, and I can bring the third brother out the day after tomorrow morning at the earliest. Master, please find the old branch secretary to issue a letter of introduction to the third brother, something that can prove his identity." Lu Hong was influenced by the old branch secretary after all, and immediately said, "Xiao Wu is right, Lao Wu, you should go to the village office and find Jasmine's father. This matter is inseparable from Jasmine's instigation. I will help you teach this child a lesson when you go home." So the meal came to an abrupt end. After Chen Yuejuan calmed down a little, Chiao Yuyan finally remembered that she felt sorry for Wu Wei. Pulling him to her room, she said, "Third brother despises you so much, yet you still want to help him." Wu Wei smiled and said, "For the sake of you and Master's wife, I have no choice but to do it. Besides, third brother is not a bad person." After that, she changed the subject and said, "Tell me, what do you want this time? I will bring it back for you." Hearing this, Chiao Yuyan looked at the watch on her hand with cherishment and said, "I haven't even given you a watch in return, so don't spend money indiscriminately anymore." Wu Wei touched her slender hand and said, "You are a cultured person, haven't you heard of the saying that the best relationship is that you owe each other? You don't have to pay back what you owe me, and I don't have to pay back what I owe you. We can only spend our lives together, and we will naturally settle the accounts when we grow old." Chiao Yuyan murmured, "Love is a debt to each other? God, why can you always use the simplest words to say the most beautiful truths?" Wu Wei said in a joking tone, "Then remember, if you find that I owe you something in the future, don't just let me go. You must pester me and make me repay you for the rest of my life." Chiao Yuyan quickly hugged him tightly and said, "No, no." Half an hour later, Wu Wei left with a letter of introduction issued by the village and Chiao Kuliang's ID. However, after leaving the Chiao family compound, Wu Wei did not go back to the county directly, but found Ma Jinbao's home. At that time, Ma Heidao was slicing rice with a big bowl in his hands. Seeing this, he was stunned on the spot until Ma Jinbao slapped him on the back of the head and said, "Don't you know how to get up and let your master sit down?" Wu Wei quickly stopped him and said, "Old Ma, don't hit him like this all the time. If you're not careful, you could break him again." With the support of his master, Ma Heidao immediately said proudly, "That's right, my brain is not good because I was beaten by my father since I was a child." Wu Wei put away a cigarette and said, "I'll make a long story short. I'm looking for Heidao to accompany me to Shanghai tomorrow." Ma Jinbao said without hesitation, "You are his master, and he must obey your arrangements." After saying that, he kicked the person with his foot and said, "What else are you going to eat? Hurry up and pack your luggage and follow your master." Wu Wei waved his hand and said, "There's no need to be in such a hurry. Just come to the county to see me before noon tomorrow." Who would marry into the family after being reborn? Author, Ben Pao de Ba Ling Ho. Chapter 137. 28th, early Sunday morning. Zishun was resting at home, so Xiaochun didn't have to get up early to cook. Instead, Wu Wei was the first to get up. When he opened the door, he saw De Wang curled up at the door, warming himself with the heat from the crack in the door. When Wu Wei opened the door, the dog went into the house without a sound, nestled next to the coal stove, and fell asleep. Wu Wei put the coal stove on a small fire and heated the hot water that had been on for a night to wash up. Then he trotted to the breakfast shop on Bai Road and bought some bean curds, fried dough sticks, and tea eggs. The main thing is to eat whatever you want. When he got home, Xiaochun also got up. When she saw that he had spent so much money, she couldn't help but feel distressed. The habit of thriftiness is engraved in his bones. Even if he had money to spend, he couldn't let go. This was the case with the third sister in her previous life. She married into the Xiong family and lived a good life, but she was always frugal. Xiaochun took the breakfast from Wu Wei and turned around and said worriedly, "Second brother, you are going on a long journey today, why are you not in a hurry at all?" Wu Wei smiled. Going on a long journey these days is a big deal for others. But for him, it is too common. What's more, it's not the first time he has been to Shanghai. The weather is good today, as long as you get the time right, you won't miss it. After the brother and sister finished breakfast, Xiaochun hurriedly rode away on the bike. Zishun got up with her messy hair. The unkempt look really doesn't look like a girl. But when she saw the breakfast bought outside on the table, she immediately became excited, washed up in no time, and came back to eat it voraciously. Wu Wei shook his head, got up and went out and said, "Stay at home honestly, I'm going out to do something." Zishun responded with a hum, and by the way, she tore a small piece of the bean bag in her hand and threw it to De Wang. Wu Wei left the courtyard and went to the meat processing factory. It was supposed to be Sunday today, so the two factory beauties were unlikely to be in the factory. Wu Wei still wanted to try his luck. In case he could meet them, he would bring an extra 3,000 to 5,000 treasury bonds. As expected, Wu Wei came back empty-handed. Wang Jing and Yu Lili were not there. When Wu Wei was about to return empty-handed, the words of the security guard Xiao Gong reminded him. Although you, the factory beauties, are not here, her third aunt, Section Chief Yu, has been working overtime recently. It was normal for the finance department to work overtime during the year-end inventory. Wu Wei immediately found the finance department. When Section Chief Yu heard that he was looking for Yu Lili, he was naturally happy to see it happen, and raised his hand to call his brothers home. Yu Lili, who was watching TV at home, heard that Wu Wei was looking for her. She immediately got up and changed her clothes, and put on makeup in a serious manner. Then he rode his Kun bike straight to the meat processing plant. Seeing Yu Lili running towards him, Wu Wei explained as soon as he opened his mouth. "It happened suddenly. I have to go to Shanghai tonight. Otherwise, I wouldn't have called you over on Sunday." Yu Lili's expectations were a little disappointed. But she still said generously, "It doesn't matter. I happen to have quite a few treasury bonds stored with my third aunt." Then Yu Lili took out treasury bonds from the finance department, totaling more than 20,000. After the two counted the money in person, Wu Wei wanted to contact Wang Jing, but there was no better way. He could only ask Yu Lili as a last resort, "Can you contact Wang Jing's family?" Originally, Yu Lili and Wang Jing were not on good terms. She didn't intend to help the other party. But then she thought, if she was so excited to make such a trip, If it got to Wang Jing's mouth tomorrow, she would inevitably be laughed at by her. In this case, she might as well drag her into the water. So more than half an hour later, Wang Jing also came in high spirits. Her outfit, including the makeup on her face and the headdress, were all carefully thought out, just like you, Lily. In the end, it was just to deliver a batch of treasury bonds. Wu Wei felt a little sorry about this. But he was good at making promises, and he made the two factory beauties smile and look forward to it with just one sentence. "I'll bring you gifts when I come back." After sending the two factory beauties away, Wu Wei went back to the small courtyard on Beihai Road. As soon as the car was parked, Qiao Yuyan came out from the main hall to greet him. Zishun followed beside him and said, "Second brother, teacher Qiao brought you a lot of boiled eggs." Seeing the other parties worry, Wu Wei pretended to be relaxed and said, "In fact, we can get there after a nap, so we can't eat much at all. The detention and repatriation station in Shanghai should be quite open-minded. Third brother will not suffer much there, don't worry." Qiao Yuyan said with a look of nostalgia, "It's you who are worried about." Wu Wei felt relieved in his heart, but said nonchalantly, "As for me, you should put your heart back in your stomach. After all, this is not the first time I go on a long journey, and this time I also brought Heidao with me." Qiao Yuyan felt relieved when she heard that someone was going with her. After sending Qiao Yuyan away, Wu Wei dared to take out the military coat full of patches. Xiaochun was not at home, and Qiao was not at home either, so Wu Wei could only sew it tightly before leaving. The total amount of treasury bonds to be taken away this time is more than 140,000. Fortunately, more than half of them are large denominations, otherwise Wu Wei's military coat would not be enough to sew. Even so, when Ma Heidao came over wrapped in a blue military coat, Wu Wei still sewed some treasury bonds into his clothes. At any time, you can't put all your eggs in one basket. After the master and his apprentice finished their preparations, they had a simple meal at home. Then they went straight to the bus station and took a minibus to Pengcheng. When the minibus arrived in Pengcheng, Wu Wei took Ma Heidao off the bus and rushed to the train station without stopping. Even so, they still couldn't buy a hard-board ticket to Shanghai that night. Wu Wei realized that at this time, the passenger flow at the train station was obviously a bit like the Spring Festival travel rush. In desperation, he bought 2 cardboard tickets from the scalpers at the station at a higher price. Only then did he squeeze onto the southbound train in the crowded crowd. The train stopped and started all the way. Ma Heidao, who was traveling far away for the first time, slept heartlessly after the novelty wore off. Wu Wei could only force himself to stay energetic and endured the night until dawn, when he arrived at Shanghai railway station. After leaving the station, the two had a simple breakfast. Wu Wei hailed a turtle car and went straight to the Zebei reception and repatriation station. Even though he still had more than 100,000 yuan in treasury bonds, saving people was still the most important thing. After all, the master's family was still waiting for news at home. When the turtle car arrived, it was already past 9 in the morning. Inside the shelter and repatriation station, the queues were neat and the slogans were loud. After submitting the letter of introduction and documents issued by the village, Wu Wei finally met Jiao Quiliang in person. This guy, except that he didn't wear bell-bottom pants and frog eye glasses, didn't change much. Then Wu Wei made arrangements, spent 100 yuan, and wrote a letter of guarantee, and then he was able to take the person away. Who would marry into the family after being reborn? Author, Ben Pao de Ba Ling Ho. Chapter 138. After leaving the detention and deportation station, Qiao Quiliang looked at the sunshine above his head, dazed. He looked as if he had just been released from prison. However, when Wu Wei looked back at the management model in the detention and deportation station, it seemed that it was no different from that in a prison. After coming back to his senses, Qiao Quiliang turned around and left without even saying thank you. Wu Wei winked at Ma Haidao. Ma Haidao stood in front of the opponent with all his strength, until his master Wu Wei approached. I said, Chiao Kuliang, I rescued you, it's fine if you don't even say thank you. At least you have to call master and mistress first to make sure they're safe, right? In fact, Chiao Kuliang is not such an ignorant person. But he never expected that the person who came to mention him would be Wu Wei. Moreover, Wu Wei behaves in every aspect in Shanghai, a big city. He is more skillful and sophisticated than him, who has always flaunted himself as fashionable and avant-garde. This made his face somewhat unbearable. As for the secret competition to make money, there is no need to mention it. Wu Wei made money and returned to his hometown in glory, making his parents and sisters favor him. And by making money on his own, he went directly to this dark shelter and deportation station. This difference is not even a little bit big. Fortunately, Chiao Kuliang listened to Wu Wei's 2 words. Soon, I was at a public telephone not far from the Zebei detention and deportation station. Chiao Kuliang made a phone call to the third Uncle Chiao's branch secretary's house. As soon as the phone rang, it was suddenly picked up. Then came Chiao Moli's nervous voice that changed her tone, is it Brother Kuliang? Chiao Kuliang took a deep breath, it's me. As soon as he finished speaking, the voices of Chen Yuejuan and Lu Hong came in unison on the other end of the phone. Sanur, you haven't suffered, have you? Kuliang, you've worried us to death. The former is Chen Yuejuan's voice. The latter sentence is Lu Hong's complaint. Chiao Moli took advantage of the opportunity to further confirm, he rescued you. Both cousins knew who this he was referring to. Chiao Kuliang paused and said, yes. He is indeed better than me. Chiao Moli was still unhappy. Lu Hong had already snatched the phone away and handed it to Chen Yuejuan. Wu Wei was smoking next to him, and when he heard these words, he didn't feel much. But it was his wife's sincere words on the phone that moved him quite a bit. Although from Yuyan's point of view, this guy Kuliang should be called third brother. But his personality, outlook, and other aspects are not mature at all. In Wu Wei's eyes, he was no different from Ma Haidao. But what is better about Ma Haidao than him is that this child is obedient and can at least avoid detours. But Chiao Kuliang, who prides himself on being independent, will take many detours. Fortunately, when faced with his master's wife Chen Yuejuan's instructions, Chiao Kuliang didn't refute much. He just responded passively like a yes man. At the end of the interview, he handed the phone directly to Wu Wei, I want to tell you. Wu Wei immediately put out his cigarette, took the phone and said, Master, please tell me. Chen Yuejuan obviously changed her tone and said, thank you for your hard work, my child. This matter has really caused trouble for you. But mistress, I still have to trouble you with something. No matter what, you have to help me bring this kid Kuliang back. Wu Wei glanced at Chiao Kuliang and said, okay, master wife, don't worry, I will definitely bring him back to you. After hanging up the phone, Wu Wei was about to pay the bill, but Chiao Kuliang had already left first. When Ma Haidao saw this, he wanted to stop him. But Wu Wei stopped him and said, let him go. Then he said loudly, I will be at Keita guest house these days. If you want to find me, go to the front desk there and ask. This was obviously meant for Chiao Kuliang, who didn't even look back. Ma Haidao, however, was dissatisfied, Master, if he asks someone to get in again, don't you still have to spend money to take care of it? Wu Wei turned to Chiao Kuliang's back and said, the question is, he is a big man, can you stop him? Ma Haidao smacked his lips, he really couldn't stop it. After all, no one can stare at it 24 hours a day. Come back. Ma Haidao saw that Master had the money in his hand, but instead of paying the bill, he made another phone call. After the call was connected, a woman's voice came. Ma Haydao couldn't hear exactly what he said. I just felt that the voice sounded superior. Just when he wanted to hear more clearly, the call ended and hung up. Wu Wei paid the bill together and took the change he got back with him in exchange for a few newspapers. The master and apprentice called another turtle car and went straight to Keita guest house. Amidst the roar of the engine, Ma Haydao shouted at the top of his lungs, "Master, what are we going to do at Keita?" Wu Wei said casually, "I just made an appointment with Kuliang there, didn't you hear?" Ma Haydao said angrily, which seemed to make sense. But when he arrived at Keita guest house, Ma Haydao encountered a new problem. "Master, this house can accommodate 2 people, why do we need to open 2 rooms? Have you forgotten that Kuliang is coming for you? You can't let him sleep on the ground then." Oh. This time, after Ma Haydao finished, he seemed to be still thinking. But then Wu Wei diverted his attention and asked, "Are the girls from big cities pretty?" Ma Haydao grinned, "Pretty, prettier than the girls in our city." Wu Wei nodded, "Then take a closer look." As they talked, the master and the apprentice went back to their rooms and agreed to meet again at lunch. Wu Wei entered Xianjiang's room and fell asleep. He hadn't closed his eyes for a moment during the night. In addition, the time agreed with Huan Kia was at night, so he could make up for his sleep without worry. This time, it was not until noon, when Ma Haydao came to knock on the door with an empty stomach. In fact, it was only more than an hour's work. It was not a long time. But Wu Wei had recovered his vigor and vitality, and his appetite was also opened. He rubbed his face, opened the door and said, "Are you hungry?" Ma Haydao hummed again and said, "It's past 12 o'clock. When I worked on the construction site, I had dinner." Wu Wei simply washed up and took Ma Haydao out of the guest house to find food. There is always no shortage of food near the university campus, and there is no shortage of cheap and good choices. The master and his apprentice found a restaurant that sells rice with toppings, and the freshly cooked hot dishes were poured over the rice along with the soup. The main point is that the quantity is large and filling. Even so, Ma Haydao still added an extra portion of rice. After lunch, they returned to the guest house. Wu Wei used the phone at the front desk to call the female dormitory of the University of Finance and Economics, but it turned out that it was not the right time. Chiao was not there. In this way, Wu Wei continued to rest peacefully. After meeting Huan Kia in the evening, it would not be too late to contact Chiao after finishing the business. However, sleeping right after eating is not a good habit. But falling asleep is really fast. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Who would marry into the family after being reborn? Author, Ben Pao de Ba Ling Ho. Chapter 139. Wu Wei woke up again. It was not yet 3 o'clock in the afternoon. He got up and read the newspaper for a while, then went out to the front desk to ask about the situation. Half a day passed, and there was still no news from Chiao Kuliang. Wu Wei was not surprised. This young man would be hard to turn back unless he got bruised and battered. On the way back to the house, he knocked on Ma Haidao's door. He asked him to come to his room, and the master and apprentice took off all the treasury bonds on their bodies, put them together, and counted them again. The total was 141,550 yuan. For this reason, Wu Wei emptied his travel bag specifically to hold treasury bonds. The travel bag was a little old, but not broken. Some of the frayed threads were sewn up by Xiao Chun, which was not noticeable at all. After finishing all this, the master and apprentice went out early, each showed off a big bowl of big rib noodles, and then took a taxi straight to Wujiang Hotel. Shanghai in the night was still bustling with traffic and people coming and going. It seemed to be on a different plane from the dark hole in the small county town. Ma Haydao was overwhelmed by the sight, just like Granny Lu, who had just entered the Grand View Garden. Before he could get enough of the sight, the Red Lotta had already taken them to the Wujiang Hotel. The old place Huang Qia mentioned was the cafe where the two met last time. Wu Wei, who revisited the old place, looked much more decent except for the travel bag on his shoulder, which was a bit eye-catching. Even so, the doorman who opened the car door still recognized him at a glance. After all, he was carrying a travel bag like this, which was really similar to the worn-out military coat he carried last time. Walking into the hotel lobby, the hustle and bustle inside was no different from the last time. Wu Wei did not take a second look, but turned left and entered the cafe. He ordered an Americano first, and asked for a latte for his eldest apprentice. The master and apprentice each occupied a booth, but they were not too far apart, waiting for Huang Qia to appear. Finally, just when Wu Wei's coffee was almost gone, the blue Lotta finally appeared. Not long after, Huang Qia appeared at the door of the coffee shop and saw Wu Wei at a glance. Because the seat Wu Wei chose was exactly the booth where the two met for the first time, and he sat outside on purpose. Huang Qia retracted her gaze and walked over calmly. Her steps were leisurely, and her posture was particularly elegant. Ma Haidao was stunned. Just when Ma Haidao was curious about where such a beautiful city woman would sit, the other party sat directly opposite the master. It turned out that she was the woman the master wanted to see. After Huang Qia sat down, she slowly took off the white silk gloves on her hands. The waiter who came with her took the opportunity to ask, "Ms. Huang, is it still the same?" Huang Qia nodded, but said to Wu Wei's empty cup, "You can refill here, do you want some more?" Wu Wei waved his hand, "Please give me a glass of water, thank you." After the waiter left, Wu Wei explained to Huang Qia, "I couldn't sleep at night because I drank too much." Then he changed the subject, "It's only been a month since we last met, and Sister Huang is becoming more and more attractive. I guess Sister Huang has gained a lot from treasury bonds during this period, and her voice in the salon has also risen." Just then, the waiter brought the fragrant coffee. Huang Qia didn't say anything, letting the other party put down the coffee and turn around to leave. Then he stirred the mellow coffee and said, "Now in the salon, there is an endless debate about when the upper level will open up the circulation and transfer of treasury bonds. What do you think about this issue?" Wu Wei said without hesitation, "I think it will be opened in 1989 at the earliest, and it will be opened in batches. First pilot, then promote it nationwide. It will take that long." This answer obviously exceeded Huang Qia's expectations. It can even be said that it exceeded the estimates of most people in the salon. So Huang Qia was shocked and asked, "Are you sure? After all, this is too far away from the judgment of Guanjin's Hung and Yang Huading." Wu Wei nodded calmly, "So I judge that due to the delay in the policy, the purchase price of treasury bonds will hit a new low next year, and the amortization resistance will increase in many places." Huang Qia raised her eyebrows. The treasury bond policy and the market are closely related. The two views put forward by the young man in front of him are actually causal. But what is the cause and what is the effect needs to be considered. Huang Qia felt that the other party was suspected of stealing the cause and effect. Fortunately, even so, it does not affect the conclusion of the release time point. Thinking of this, Huang Qia crossed her legs, showing her slender and straight calves. On her delicate face, she said playfully, "If it really takes until 1988 to release, then the time cost of my holding will be greatly increased. Aren't you afraid that I will go back on my word and not accept your treasury bonds? Wait until next year when the market is sluggish, and then increase the purchase volume." Wu Wei spread his hands, "Of course I am afraid, Sister Huang. If you don't accept the treasury bonds I brought, then I can only sell them to General Manager Guan and others at a 10% discount, and lose 2,000 or 3,000 for nothing." Huang Qia took a sip of coffee and took the opportunity to glance at Wu Wei from above the rim of the cup. This country bumpkin looked timid, but in fact he was hinting that at worst he would go to Guanjin's Hung and Yang Huading. This guy is really not simple at all. At such a young age, he has such a scheming and mind. Huang Kia said nothing more, but just signaled to the waiter that the coffee needed to be kept. Then he stood up and said, "Come with me, and leave me your phone number." Wu Wei picked up his travel bag and followed the other party to the blue Lada car. They didn't leave until the money and goods were settled and they left their phone numbers. On the way back, Ma Haidao took a taxi again. The novelty of the four wheels was gone. At this moment, his mind was full of the shocking scene of his master taking out stacks of big unity from the other party's bag. From childhood to adulthood, when has he ever seen such a scene? The money was like straw paper, in stacks. When he came to his senses, the taxi had returned to the Keita guest house. Ma Haidao took a deep breath, got off the car, and turned back to stare at the skull bag on his master without blinking. Fortunately, nothing happened during the payment process. When the taxi drove away, Wu Wei comforted him, "Don't stare at my bag like that, or someone will notice. Go back and have a good sleep, don't worry about anything. Next, let's eat and drink happily and wait for Guoliang to go home together." Ma Haidao asked, "But will he come to see us?" Wu Wei did not answer but asked, "He has no money, what can we do if he doesn't come back to see us?" Ma Haidao nodded involuntarily. It is true that the world outside is wonderful, but if you have no money, you can't move forward. The master and apprentice separated at the front desk, and Wu Wei called Yang Qiao as usual. It's a pity that it's really hard to call the girls' dormitory phone at night. Wu Wei dialed for more than 10 minutes in a row, and finally got through this time. When Yang Qiao ran over happily, Wu Wei said leisurely, "Guess where I am? Who would marry into the family after being reborn?" Author, Ben Pao de Ba Ling Ho. Chapter 140. More than 10 minutes later, there was a knock on the door. Wu Wei first took a look through the observation hole, and then opened the door with a smile. However, for this moment of delay, Yang Qiao was a little impatient. As soon as she opened the door, she jumped into his arms. Wu Wei was stunned. Has this silly girl become so enthusiastic and unrestrained after just over a month of training? Surprised, he kicked the door shut. Only then did Yang Qiao let go of her arms, her beautiful eyes sparkling with excitement. Wu Wei took a quick look and saw that Qiao had changed a lot after only a month. Not only has the previous rusticity disappeared, but also being influenced by the university campus, the whole person has become much more cheerful and bright. If he were walking on the road during the day, Wu Wei might not be able to recognize him at a glance. Fortunately, no matter how much he changes, the look in his eyes remains unchanged. While Wu Wei was looking at himself, he suddenly heard a snapping sound and felt a sudden chill on his wrist. Wu Wei lowered his head and saw that it was a brand new Shanghai watch. After Yang Qiao took care of it for him, he even happily compared it with his own wrist, becoming more and more satisfied. Wu Wei rubbed his head, "You study every day, how can you get the money to buy this? Moreover, teacher Qiao at home is also saving money to give herself a return gift." As a result, Yang Qiao got there first. Immediately before Yang Qiao answered, Wu Wei understood, "Did you buy it with the living expenses the old lady gave you? In fact, what's so strange about this? When this silly girl just earned so much money, she was willing to buy leather shoes for herself. What's more, she still has some savings now." Yang Qiao only cared about having fun. He didn't take Wu Wei's earnest words to heart at all. The little money the old lady gave you, use a little, and you will get nothing. Don't spend it carelessly in the future. Not only that, she even dared to be stubborn. "I'm not just sitting on my hands, Manman and I are making money by doing other people's accounts." Fortunately, upon hearing this, Wu Wei suddenly felt very relieved. Qiao Qiao finally knows how to apply what she has learned and rely on her skills to earn a living. But when he asked, "How much can you earn in a month?" Yang Qiao's voice immediately weakened, "Not much, about 30 yuan. While showing weakness, he also secretly glanced at Wu Wei. Wu Wei stopped criticizing and tried his best to encourage, "It's not bad, it's enough for basic living." When Yang Qiao saw this, she immediately put her hands on her hips and said, "Not just basic living. I've gained weight in the past month." "Really?" Wu Wei didn't believe it, "Then I have to check it carefully." This inspection took more than an hour. "It's a pity that I didn't check whether I was fat or not." Wu Wei only noticed that the calluses on Qiao's hands had faded a lot. "Whether it's touching or being touched, it's much more comfortable." After a while, Wu Wei looked at the time and said, "Hey, it's almost time. If you don't go back, your dormitory will be closed." Yang Qiao also took the opportunity to grab Wu Wei's wrist and watch. But Wu Wei was looking at the time, and she was looking at the watch. "The more I looked at it, the more satisfied I became, but I just couldn't move." It wasn't until Wu Wei looked into her eyes that she said timidly, "I told Manman that I won't go back tonight. She will cover for me." Wu Wei was so excited that he stood up and said, "Then you didn't tell me earlier." The next morning, December 30th. When Wu Wei woke up, the bed beside him was already empty. There were half-sewn cash and military coats on the bedside table. Wu Wei opened the travel bag and took a look. After so much sewing, this silly girl really didn't rest for a moment. Feeling distressed, Wu Wei asked Ma Heidao to buy breakfast after briefly washing up. He picked up the stitches left by Yang Qiao and continued sewing. Anyway, being idle is idle. If you sew more, you will be able to sew less. A whole morning of sewing and mending passed by in a blink of an eye. It wasn't until there was another knock on the door that Wu Wei looked at his watch and found that it was already noon. After getting up and stretching, Wu Wei opened the door. I saw that Yang Qiao, who was holding a book, was not alone. Next to her was a tall southern girl with eyes full of gossip. "Are you Li Manman?" Wu Wei took the initiative to reach out his hand and introduced himself politely, "I am Wu Wei." "So you are the mysterious man who made Qiao fall in love." Li Manman shook his hand back, unwilling to be outdone. "You seem to be very ordinary." Before Wu Wei could react, Yang Qiao said unhappily, "Manman." Wu Wei smiled, shrugged, and said, "I am just an ordinary person, please come in." Li Manman entered the room and saw the mess on the bed. Her cheeks suddenly turned red. She could imagine what kind of night Qiao had gone through here since she didn't return home last night. But then, she saw the travel bag on the bedside and a large pile of uncovered items in the travel bag. So much money? At least tens of thousands of dollars. Li Manman made a rough estimate and swallowed a big mouthful of saliva involuntarily. I never thought that a seemingly ordinary man could be so rich. No wonder Qiao was so devoted to him. While secretly shocked, Li Manman's eyes changed when she looked at Wu Wei. Seeing this, Yang Qiao quickly closed her travel bag to cover it up appropriately. In comparison, the mess on the bed was not so annoying. Even so, Wu Wei felt that it was inconvenient to stay in the room for a long time. After calling Ma Heidao, he turned to Yang Qiao and Li Manman and said, "It's time for dinner. I'll invite you to go out for dinner." Then he ordered Ma Heidao, who ran over, "You stay in this room and wait for me to come back and then you can go for dinner." Ma Heidao nodded, glanced at Yang Qiao and Li Manman, and was curious. How could the master know girls from big cities? And there were two of them. Besides being curious, he didn't recognize Yang Qiao at all. After leaving the guest house, the three of them came to a home-style restaurant, chose a seat by the window, sat down, ordered dishes and ate. During the meal, Li Manman frequently stole glances at Wu Wei, and then exchanged glances with Yang Qiao. In the end, Yang Qiao slapped him back and said, "Eat, eat." What kind of inner drama was exchanged between the two girls, Wu Wei didn't know. But seeing how sincere Li Manman was to Yang Qiao, Wu Wei felt relieved and relieved. After a while, they were full and satisfied. Yang Qiao left quickly, dragging Li Manman, who was full of gossip. On the way back, Li Manman was no longer able to hold back and directly exposed her cards. Qiao, tell me honestly, what kind of business does your husband do? How can an ordinary businessman make so much money? Hearing this, Yang Qiao gave up treatment and said viciously, yes, my man specializes in abducting gossipy women like you, taking them to the mountain village to sell them to others as wives, and then giving birth to a litter of piglets.